I said that one of the things that we were told by the Executive Steering Committee is we needed to focus on what does good look like. Well, here's your first example. So Kevin Nally from Exxon Mobil is going to be presenting this session, and I'm going to get out of his way.
All right, good morning. So as he said, I'm Kevin Nally. I'm a construction manager with Exxon Mobil Global Projects. On the project I'm going to talk about, I was the AWP planning manager. Jean-Luc Rombouts, sitting over here, was the construction manager, and a bunch of other people we worked together. So I'm presenting, but there's a lot of more people that were involved. So the scene set is the project that we're on was called Baytown Chemicals Expansion in Houston, Texas, in Baytown. It was ended up with about 3,500 people on it, about $2 billion. And from the beginning, we decided, we had done a project before where we used work-face planning, and it worked quite well. And we said this time we knew more about it, and we wanted to do full AWP, including engineering, procurement, and construction. So we started getting into it, and this was 5 years ago when we started. And we started getting into it, and there was a lot we didn't know, right? And it was pretty complex, and we were trying to maximize the use of technology, but like I, for one, am not a technology person, right? And so we brought in some people and we started getting busy with it. Do I advance this thing? Yes. All right, so we started with building the vision, right? We need to get everybody on the same page of what we're trying to do. We said we're going to align on the goals, and the goals are, this is for the crews in the field, not for us as the managers. It's for the people in the field to be able to be efficient and safe. And we showed visual examples of things, and the reason for that is people were visual learners, right? I'm a visual learner. There's a difference between a table of data and a chart, right? A graphic. And so people learn better that way, so we started using that. And another one was getting alignment of the key stakeholders. And if you're pulling in different directions, it's going to be a mess, right? And it's like in closed doors, you can have any discussion you want, but when you walk out, there's got to be no space between you. And this is the owner, this is people on the owner's team, it's the contractors, it's us all together, right? We're in it together. And that was one of the things we put a lot of energy into. And we were pretty successful with that, right? We would have our rubs and stuff, but we'd all get over it and move forward, so. The problem we're dealing with, the same problem all of us are dealing with, right? It's unacceptable project results. A project going a year or two late, for an owner, a year or two late job means you have to go buy that product that you already promised to sell. You set up sales contracts. You have to go buy it on the spot market. And Jean-Luc and I had been on a previous project that was late, and it was a rough project for us. And we were both like, we don't ever want to go through that again, hopefully. And so AWP is one of the ways we could keep that from happening. And then another issue is the EPC silos, right? Everybody, if you don't set up that contract right and build your team right, everybody's looking out for their own individual best interest, which are often undermining the other people, right? So you got to put a lot of effort into that of making sure that we don't have that going on. Another one is analog data, where you don't have the native files, you have PDF files, right? And that does you no good because you can't use that data. And we'd had another project where the engineering contractor and the construction contractor somehow in their contract didn't have transferring this data from the engineering to construction. And unbelievable the problems that caused, unbelievable. And we said, we don't want that happening, you know. And then another issue is alternative facts. Everybody's got their truth, right? Everybody's got their own data source, and none of them agree. And same old story. And then optimistic schedules. Nobody wants to believe it could take that long or could cost that much early on. So you say, oh, we can do better this time. We'll do it because we really want to do it better this time, versus having a realistic plan for doing better this time. And then no line of sight on the work fronts. There's so much going on, you just get lost in it, you know, and you have these schedules that are 100 pages long that nobody can read and nobody can understand. Maybe the scheduler can. And you try to use that, but you're just struggling through the whole thing. And then things are done but not done. And I'm sure y'all know, most of you know that saying, and people say, oh yeah, we're done, but this, and this. Well, this, and this is about $50,000 in a week and a half, you know, or whatever it is. And then unpredictable startups, you know, because your schedule runs long and then you find problems because, you're going to do your system turnover and you find stuff that was delayed and it was sort of finished, but then when you get to the walk down, you find out, hey, this is not really finished. And this is going to be as hard as it could possibly be to finish now because we're at the last minute, you know. And these things just cause some big problems and some big money, right? And we were talking about the productivity growth only being 1% in our industry, you know, and you think, man, that's pretty sad. And it's like, surely we can do better because we surely got some intelligent people who are trying real hard. So, you know, we said, hey, we got to, part of it's on us to give these people the opportunity to be successful because workers come to work, right? They don't come here to stand around. When you see people stand around on a job site, that's our fault, right? Because you know what? Those people don't have materials, they don't have direction, they're missing drawings, they're missing a piece of equipment. Something's going on because they didn't come here to hang out for 10 hours. They came here to get the work done and get the day over with and make some money. And we're all in that boat. We all want to make some money. We all want to get the day over with, right? We all want to do something we can be proud of. So it's up to us to help those people. So, building the vision. So building the vision, I'm going to go on from that. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. Here we are. The challenge we had on this project, we had 3 primary contractors for engineering. We had 1, and in construction we had a primary mechanical contractor and an E&I contractor that was a sub to the mechanical. And then all of them were new to AWP and work-face planning. And several thought they had done it before, but you know, it wasn't quite what we were talking about. And it was 4 years duration, and then with COVID, it ended up being 5 years duration. We had 5.5 million components on our smart plant materials database. We're like, man, that's a lot of components to keep track of, right? But with that database and using data, it actually worked fine. And that was a great introduction to data in the difficulties of it, but the significance of it and the benefits if you actually know how to manage data. But most people don't know how to manage data, but that's something we really need to work on learning. So, and then needing access to, ready access to live data. We would get our reports and they'd be the 3rd week of the month for the previous month, you know? And you're like, man, how good is this? And we'd have to make decisions on that data, you know, and this was a problem for us. And then on this project, including digital backups and stuff like that, we had over 4 terabytes of data. And that's a lot of data, huh? I didn't know there's that much computing space in the world, but it shows you what I know. Not much on computers. But we talk about, the next one is why change. So you can see the pie chart on the left, and this is no AWP, this is on the Gulf Coast. And then on the right is with AWP. So you can see the direct man hours percentage difference, about 10% difference. And that's because you're organized, right? That's the key part of it. Whereas before, you're gathering up some drawings, the foreman, the superintendents have foremen in the office stacking drawings, trying to make their work packages, but they don't have any way to correlate the details of those drawings to the details from the materials, right? They do MTOs. They got most of the material, but not all the material. And so the with AWP on the right, you can see that you're taken from your delays and you're given to your direct time. So one of the questions is, if not us, who? And if not now, when? That was JFK, right? And I don't know when he said, about 1960 or something, when they were trying to get the space program going. And like, I remember as a kid, my brothers and I watching TV and seeing the first moon landing. It's in 1969, I believe. And I remember I was like first grade range, and I just remember thinking, man, that's so cool that they could go up there, you know? And we hear this stuff about a computer controlled that thing, and we didn't know what a computer was, you know, but we thought it was cool that they were on the moon. And so when you think about stuff like that, something new, right? That really took a lot of courage. But it takes courage and conviction to try something new, because there's going to be a lot of naysayers. And you have to ignore these naysayers. You want to listen to the content of their message to see if you missed something. But a lot of people are negative. And a lot of people, you know, like, I came up with this thing that a lot of people are intellectually lazy. They don't want to try something new because they have to do more, do something they didn't do. They'd rather suffer the same pain and agony that they suffered on the previous job for 4 years, instead of trying something new, which to me is crazy. But you'll run into that, right? And I'm sure y'all have run into that. And I just said, for me, I'm not going to listen to those naysayers. I'm going to find some positive people, and we're going to figure this stuff out, right? And so you look at, whoops, I messed my slide up here. So we talk about what does good AWP look like, and we have an inverted pyramid here, right? And at the bottom is the owner. It's not on there. The slide is up right now. This is an awkward thing, not seeing it. Which slide is up? You're good? All right. So it's off from my notes. So we're looking at an inverted pyramid, and what it says is the crew is what matters, right? It's not the owner. The owner, it shows at the top of the pyramid some places, top of the org chart. That's not the case, right? It's about that crew in the field, about them getting what they need when they need it. It's about keeping people busy. And we were talking about this a couple weeks ago and said, you know, if you got 1,000 people out there, that's 120 crews that need a fresh installation work package every week, right? And we made our work packages 1 to 2 weeks, and we found that we're like, man, a 1 week installation work package is a tiny work package. But we found that if we made it longer, it was hard to close them. It got harder and harder to close the work package. And one of the things that we came up with is that you build an installation work package to close that package, right? 100% be done. So you're done with that work. And for doing this, we engaged Insight AWP for this project, Jeff Ryan's company. And my boss told me, it's like October of 18, he said, hey, I want you to hire this guy and go over to the engineering office in Milan and do an audit of our program and have him do an assessment. So we go over there, and it's Monday morning, and it's like, we started probably at 9 o'clock, so it must have been 11. And I was like, we've been here 2 hours, and this guy's already asked 20 questions that I was never going to ask because I didn't know to ask them, you know? And I'm like, man, I'm glad Tom made me bring this guy in. And by the end of that week, I said, man, I want to bring this guy onto our project to help us figure this out, right? And so we brought in Insight AWP, and these guys were technical experts on stuff that we didn't know how to do with computers, with data, with 3D models and stuff like that. And that was my introduction to data. And, you know, this data is amazing. And that's what I found, is that the modern project's about data. And, but one thing we found with AWP is it is not an easy button. It is not. I mean, it was difficult. It's like it's a simple concept, but it's a very complex execution. And So we set into it and started working, developing things. We'd already been working our CWPs and stuff like that, but more to come. So we're talking about executing the plan. So we had Tecnomont out of Milan, Italy. They were the engineering contractor. We had performance contractors out of Baton Rouge, and ISC, which is an E&I contractor, out of Baton Rouge as well. And they were partnered together. They worked together before and worked pretty well together. And we had insight on this. And then we were in the middle trying to pull it all together and keep the fights to a minimum, keep us moving forward, you know, deal with the issues. And we're all in it together, though. We said we're going to be one team here. And we had meetings together. We were housed together. You know, we didn't have separate trailers or anything like that. We were around each other. And Darren Jones was the AWP manager for performance contractors. He's sitting with us over here. We talked every single day, right? My office is just around the corner from him. And open door policy, we would talk all the time. We'd figure stuff out. We would put it together, and it made a lot of fun, right? And these guys they embraced the methods. They enhanced the methods. They drove it into the workforce, right? And their work practices. And it took the whole group to do this thing, right? It's a big effort, but it was quite challenging and quite interesting to do that, right? And you're dealing with human psychology, with our biases, and it's like I've been in this business for quite a while, and I found a lot of my biases were exposed during this time. And one of the things I got from it was I need to open my mind up, you know? And just because something didn't work 15 years ago and we got pounded for it doesn't mean we can't do it now, right? And that's something we got to all work on, and that's something in life as well. But I was taught that lesson several times. I think I finally learned it. I hope I did. And so we got into it, and then the benefits that we found from this was our TRIR was 0.02 for 12.7 million man hours. And this was after the restart, after COVID. And I remember for years that our corporate for Exxon was 0.2 was our TRIR for like 10-year period. We couldn't get over it. And then here we are with this performance. And a whole lot of that is about that crew having their work direction, their drawings, their model shots, and their materials, and 100% of the materials for the work, not 98%, right? So they talk through what they're gonna do, and they can go do it. They don't, at 9:30 in the morning, realize we're out of material. We gotta find something to earn our hours today. So they go find something to try to earn some hours, right? But they haven't thought, they're trying to gather the material. They haven't thought of what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, what are the safety risks. They just go to do it, and that's when people get hurt. And on this project, we had materials squared away, and it was the best job for materials I ever had. And those guys consistently, when I go in the field and talk to foremen, I would always ask them, do you have everything you need? And they consistently say yes. And occasionally they'd say they needed something, and we go find it and make sure we close that loop. But consistently, they had what they needed. And, you know, having what you need goes a long ways towards motivating you to do what you're supposed to do. And they had it. So let's see, what else? We used iPads, and they had constraint-free work, 100% of the materials, like I was saying. They had access to the model, access to the drawings. They had consistent IWP throughput, meaning we were opening them, we were executing, we were closing them. And some of them were hard to close, right? But the majority we were able to close. And learned a few lessons on that, but always continuing to grow, right? And then it improved our schedule, it improved our productivity and our budget. And it just went a long ways towards helping us. And like Jean-Luc was saying, I can't imagine doing a project like this again without AWP. And neither can I. And it gives you something to keep track of, right? A big enough data set that you can wrap your head around it, but small enough where you can dig into the details. and not get lost in it. So you look at this. This is the old Lego set, right? We were early in engineering, and we were in some team building thing, and the senior project manager had this idea about Legos, and he had some of the team's boxes just had all the Legos like the top. Some of them had most of the packages, but not all of them, you know, or all of the components. Like he had opened up a bag and taken some components out, and some of them had all the components. And then we were timed, you know, and we timed everyone. And the guys that had everything, of course, did great, you know. And then some of them were just like, I can't figure this out, you know. And they're like, hey, we stole some of your pieces, so. It was pretty fun. And so we have this drawing here, and you look at the top, and it's a bunch of raw information, right? Nothing's organized. And then the second one where it's in the bins. So it's warehoused and stored in a data warehouse. So we had a data warehouse on this project, and it was on the Microsoft Azure cloud, and it was one database for the whole project. And different companies had files, and there were some shared files and some public files, right? But they weren't allowed to keep their data on their servers in the home office, because that always blocks somebody out of access to that data, right? Or somebody on a weekend puts a patch on something, and the Monday morning, half the project team's kicked out of the data for 4 hours until you get it fixed, you know? And that's just a gross inefficiency and a bad start to a week. So we had this one Azure database that the guys from Insight took care of. And they did a very good job of organizing that data, and they were able to adjust it when we needed to adjust it. But that made a big difference. So everybody always had access to the data. Nobody ever got blocked out of it. And then the next one, tracked. So the data's mined to find patterns and issues. They would do these things, and then we would make these reports on Power BI using this data, right? And over time, we adjusted these reports to people's needs, and pretty interesting. So you had live information, and then used as the last one. So we transformed it into these meaningful decisions, right? And we had Power BI, and it was interesting because I'd never even heard of Power BI before this project. And Gregorio's showing me this stuff, and he said, you know, if you want a different look at that, we can make that look for you in this Power BI report. So he did it. I was like, man, that is so cool that you can do it that quickly. And what we found, you know, when you go through a project, you go through many different cycles of a project, right? And different trades have the focal point. You know, you start with your civil, you do your temporary electrical, and then you start getting into structural, you get into pipe, you're pulling cable and stuff like that. And they all have their time. And we adjusted these Power BI reports for the cycle of the project and for individual people's needs for information, so they could make prompt decisions with the current data. And it was live data from that morning, you know. And for sure had never seen that. So when you have one data set like that, you have one truth for your project, right? You have one truth because everybody's pulling from the same data, and that solves a whole lot of disagreements, you know. And really a cool way to do things. And more people are doing that. O3 Solutions does that as well. And, you know, there's some options there. And that's something really worth looking into, because data is the key to everything. All right, so we deliver results with that one truth, right? Talked about the Power BI. We did lunch and learns for using it. So one of the things I learned on this job is I'm not a very good trainer, right? I'm not a teacher. And that's something you got to put some effort into, is training and little modules of training that people can use, because people come and go on a job site, right? If you have 3,500 people, you go through 12, 15,000 people over the cycle of a job. And you got to train a lot of people, because most of them don't know what it is, right? And you got to get it simple enough that people can grasp it, but complex enough to show what it can do, which is way more difficult than it sounds, right? But you need to put some effort into that. And I think we did a so-so job on the training on this project, and we have some room for improvement, right? But that's a lesson learned. And then, what else? Just having that single source of data, though, really helped us make progress and stopped a lot of disputes. So this one here, this is a guy in the field on our project using his iPad to look at augmented reality, right? And we say build trust. Why is it building trust? Because when you're on a job where that foreman and general foreman, they don't know where their material is, if they're gonna have the material to keep their crews fed, they're gonna take more material than they need for that week, right? So you end up with these piles of material on your job site where you don't have enough space to stage your materials anyway. People move material around, people steal some material, people lose the material. So you're forever in a mess, right? Because they don't trust the system to be feeding them their materials. But with these iPads, we had iPads for all general foremen and above. We had them for QC, we had them for safety, several other startup team had them, but we didn't use paper. When we came back from COVID, we had decided during COVID, we did a lot of planning during that time. And we decided we're not going to go back to paper packages. And because with a paper package, it takes a lot of binders, it takes paper, it takes people. You have to turn it in, you have to have a place for it. It's an enormous amount of paper. And we said, we're going to go to iPads. And we had talked about this before, but when we got to it, we realized nobody on the project team we had before the COVID shutdown, nobody knew how to actually program an iPad. And I'd have these meetings, and these guys were like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, really? That's cool, because I don't know how to do it, right? And then we go to do it, and everybody's like, I don't know how to do it, And I was like, oh, my God, I promised all kinds of people we're going to use iPads, So in that year, we got some guys that figured out how to do it. And they figured out how to get licenses for things at a very affordable rate, because some people wanted a lot of money for these licenses. And we had a bunch of iPads on this job. And they found this was a guy from Performance that found it. And great deal. And then they got it all integrated, a bunch of them putting their heads together. And these iPads had everything. So they always had the latest drawing, because you don't have to go print them and hand them out to foremen, right? You get them when they get on it that morning. It has the latest drawing. It has their material list. It has their IWP. It has the model shot. So the model's in there, so they can get the shot they want. They don't have a printed model shot now. And it was amazing. We had the materials. We had the 4-week look ahead. So on this job, Gregorio Labazetta from Insight, he was like, hey, let's do the 4-week look ahead on the model. And I had never seen that before, And I'm like, really? And I said, all right, let's try it. And we had week 3 was blue, and week 4 was like a purplish color. And we would have in our 4-week look ahead meeting, we would never talk about weeks 1 and 2. It took a while to get the discipline to do that, because a lot of 3 or 4 week look aheads are talking about this week, which is helping you none for getting ready for the future, right? But with this, it forced us to look at weeks 3 and 4, and the superintendent had to get up in front of everybody and present his look ahead. And what that did was it forced that superintendent to be involved in the planning, and it forced them to know what was coming, right? And to take a look, because if you're going to speak about it, you got to know something about it. And it pulled them into the planning and made sure that they were accountable for it and that they understood it. And it also helped the other people in the room see if they're going to have a clash, like, hey, we were planning to be there that week. And this happened multiple times. It didn't happen every week, but it happened multiple weeks, right? Where we figured out 2 weeks ahead of time, 3 weeks ahead of time, that we were going to have a clash, and they were able to regroup, and that clash never occurred. And there's a lot of money saved by doing that, right? And a lot of frustration. And we used this augmented reality, which lets you see from the 3D model what you're going to put there. And we had all these QR codes all around the job, and you would you would zero in on it with your iPad, and then it would say, this is where you're at, and then you would hold it up, and you could see what was going there. And it was amazingly accurate. And that way the crew knew what was coming, right, what they were going to build. And the power of that is something, you know, not to be underestimated. Took a lot to do it, but it was so cool that you could see what was coming, huh? And you think about the days when we just worked off of an ISO, and you're like, it's this column line to this column line, it's right up in this area. Okay, we know where it is, you know? And we're like way beyond that now. It's so cool seeing that stuff. And so we come to this, what does good AWP look like? This was our cycle 2, which was civil and structural, and we had 53.9% of the time on direct labor. And when we got to our mechanical, went down some, but this is what we experienced on this. And the bottom is the slide from earlier on, so this is time back to the beginning, right? And that was a good evaluation. We did that time on tool study. We were pretty happy with that one, huh? Like, we're used to getting freaking pounded on some of these reviews, and it was so nice to hear this good news, you know, and it was so satisfying to see it. So we had civil using this. They used it a lot for their material, right? And then structural used it a lot. And the contractor we had, Performance, they were an excellent contractor. They did a great job on this project. And they utilized it to the best of their abilities. We all got room to learn, but they tried it, you know, and they embraced it and they used it. And we also used the IWPs for progressing. And it was a big help to us. So finally I get to the key lessons learned. So we started off with like 6 of them, we end up with more. So I'll just go down through it. Owner manages the integration of E, P, and C. So when I first wanted to try work-face planning, this was in 2010-11 range. So I went to our chief project manager, who was a smart guy, cable guy, well-experienced, and I told him about this work-face planning. He goes, we don't do that stuff. That's for the contractor to do. And I was like, well, it's our money and it's our schedule, and we're deep in their business anyway. I don't know why we wouldn't do this. And he's, we're not going to do that. And I thought, man, I'm doing it, you know. I'm just not telling this guy. So I got a project. I did a presentation on that project, and we started in 2012. And I was telling a guy this morning about that when I was bringing people onto this project, I'd interview them, and this was with Jacobs in Houston. And I'd say, hey, we're going to use this work-face planning. I give them a rough description because I didn't fully understand it. It made sense to me, but I didn't fully know or anything. And I said, hey, in the end, you're either with us or you're against us. If you're with us, you'll be open-minded, you'll try it, you'll be positive, you'll be naysayer, right? If you're against us, if you're doubting it, if you don't want to do it, get out of here. I don't want you. And everybody wanted a job, right? So they're all like, yeah, I'm in. I said, then you're in, dude. And we had a good group of people, though, and they were in. And it was quite fun. And like I tell some people, that job was my best sleep ever, you know? And you think about some of the projects where you wake up with these job site nightmares at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're just like, oh no, this night's ruined, you know? And I had none of that stuff on that job because it was much smoother than what I'd experienced before, you know? And so engage contractors early in the bid phase. So the projects I have right now, we have 2 sites, and we've interviewed the EP contractors and the construction contractors. And we told them, hey, we're going to use AWP on this, and it's probably not what you're used to. So you need to be open. So we had these procedures that we had developed on the last project, and I developed them to go to the next project and give to people in our company, right? And they're fairly detailed. And I said, this is what we mean by AWP, because what we found was everybody had a different definition that fit themselves, right? And their own current work processes. And wasn't gonna help us at all, right? So we've detailed this thing out. And I said, hey, this is the basis for your bid, so you better read it. And we can negotiate out things that don't make sense, but if they make sense, you're doing it. So wrap your heads around it right now and make sure you're gonna do it. And So that's part of clearly communicating what AWP means, right? You have to write it down so people have the same reference point. And then build the requirements into the contract. So, hey, you can't give us ISOs on an ISO curve because you're going to give us the straight run off-site OSBL pipe first, which we don't need. We need the ISBL pipe, and we need the large bore pipe, you know, so we can get into fabrication, get it to the site, right? And we need it in this area for this service, right? In this rectangular cube that we're using as a CWA. And so you build that stuff in the contract. And then the AWP itself starts in the bid phase while you're building your schedule. So the schedule we're building on this next project right now, I'm working with the schedulers to put it into the CWAs, the construction work areas, and have it by engineering, procurement, and construction within that. And then it's going to become a CWP schedule, which is an EWP schedule, right? So their schedule from very early on is going to be based on EWPs. And when we go to do our feed kickoff in a couple of months, that's the schedule that we'll start with. So otherwise, they do their macros and P6, and you're like, what the heck is this, you know? And nobody reads the schedule from the beginning. That's what happens, except the scheduler. Well, we're doing it this way now on this project. And so we set the expectations and the thinking, right? And then we'll start teaching them. And then have a plan for data management. So we're pulling in the data guys now. In a month, I'm going to pull them in. And you got to pull them in very early to set the structure for the data, the formatting and that sort of thing, because there's a lot of software packages. So we're in a meeting, like our staff meeting, like, I don't know, months and months ago, and John Luke had some document, I don't remember what it was, we had some visitors or something. He says, man, we used 40 software packages on this job. And that's amazing, huh? If you don't have someone managing your data that knows data and how to transfer it between software, you got a mess, you know? So you got to have a data plan and then use data visualization. So stat viz model. So we were having a debate on starting pipe. And remember the old, hey, you got 70% of your pipe spools here, time to get started on pipe, you know? And all the pressure builds because everybody loves pipe. And so we were getting that, and we're having this debate, and I was like, hey man, we don't have enough packages ready for that, and we don't have enough material for it in that CWA. And we're going back and forth on it, right? So one of Jeff's guys pulls up the model, and green was the spools here, and red was the spools not, and it looked like a Christmas tree. And we all just shut up. In that instant, I still remember that moment, and we were sitting next to each other. We looked at each other and said, we're not starting in this area right now. And that model put it to rest, right? That a spreadsheet could have never done us justice. And you could see right there, we don't have any open work fronts. And then once we did, though, we said, hey, we got enough work fronts here. We got our packages built. You know, we're ready for it. And then the 4-week look-ahead model that I said earlier, and that's visual. The IWPs are in a construction 3D model, so you can see what they are and how they fit together and sequence them. And then the augmented reality that I talked about earlier. And you can see what's coming, what you're going to build when there's nothing there. And then the next one, this is the end. So prepare for resistance to change. Remember I said earlier, a lot of people are intellectually lazy. People are going to resist. People in your own company, people in your own project team, people that you look up to, people that you respect, people that you know they know what they're doing. Capable people, right? But we all have our own biases. We all have our own takes, right? So you got to work with them. You got to figure out something we can all live with. And it's like when you have to move somewhere and your spouse doesn't want to go, you got to figure out something where there's something in it for them, right? And that's the same with this kind of change, right? It's any changes. They got to see what they can gain from it. And so you got to propose it that way and present it that way. And then interface the data from multiple software packages. Like I said, we had 40 or so software packages. And then this is a key one. The work phase planning reports to construction, not to project controls. Because a lot of people think, oh, schedules and project controls, AWP is scheduling. No, it's not scheduling, it's planning, it's construction work, right? It's packages. Like, I will never again let AWP report to project controls. They will report to construction. So when we brought in our construction contractors, which included performance, who did the last job, and their senior managers, I told them that. I said, hey, you're not going to have these guys reporting to project controls. They're going to report up through to the construction manager, right? Because they're for construction, and you want construction to own it. So as construction owns it, they'll push it, right? They'll use it, they'll push it, they'll get their needs met, and it'll have the stroke needed to get what they need in the time they need it. And one I didn't put on here was you need to tie in the work phase planning to your systems turnover, right? So you can't have them in separate camps because they got to feed from one to the other. You got to go from area-based construction to your system turnover-based. And so you want to go from an IWP, which is area-based, to a turnover work package, which is system-based. And so you can finish that thing out. And you don't lose any data. You don't lose your materials. You assign the materials for the rest of the work to those TWPs. And that was a good lesson learned. And then the best work phase planners come from the field, right? They're former foremen, general foreman, superintendent. So we had a guy on this project, he was a structural superintendent, and he was a good one. And he was same age as me. And when we came back from the pause, we said, hey, Warren, would you like to be a planner? Because we needed a good structural steel planner. And he said, sure, I'll do it. And this guy could barely use a computer, but we had guys that could use a computer, but they didn't know structural iron. And he learned it, and he was motivated to learn it, right? Because he was tired of pushing crews and all the stress with it. And that guy over time became one of our very best planners. He went to pipe. He's awesome. He's still with you, right, Darren? Yeah, so Darren took him to his next job. And that's an example where it takes years to learn how to build something. You can learn how to use a computer for what you need to do, right? We don't need computer jockeys. We don't need a computer science major that's 26 years old that can't visualize anything. We need a dude that knows how to build stuff. And we had one that came from STO. He was pretty good too. But you gotta look at what their skills are and how they'll work. But they got to be able to visualize it because a lot of stuff's not shown on the model, the detailed components when you're looking at your materials. And then tablets versus paper, I said something about that before. Like, I don't ever want to use paper in a field again. And I'm a guy who has a notebook, you know, but there's the time for drawings is done. And I remember a job that we had that was way smaller than this one. In our document control room was massive. We had like 10 people working in there. It was a huge chunk of a trailer. And what we had on this project was we had 2 people, one from Exxon and one from Performance. And they were the document control for the project in the field, you know. And we had some folks at Technoma in the office for engineering, but it was like a part-time for them. And they did it all on a computer. And yeah, that's the way to go. But in the end, we said, hey, cooperation and willingness is more important than AWP experience, right? When you go to interview people, they're not going to have much AWP experience. A lot of them are going to have none. The key is, are you willing to do it, right? If you're willing to do it, you can learn it. And if you want to do it, you can make the most of it, right? And in the end, it's like we want our companies, our countries, our industry to be competitive, right? We have a lot of global competition. And for me, growing up in the Midwest in the 70s when all the jobs left for Mexico, and when we're in high school and we're like, what are we going to do? It matters, you know, and we want to be able to work where we choose to work, not where we have to work, right? And this is about being globally competitive and making the most of the opportunity that we're given, because this is a cool industry, you know, you never stop learning, but we got to make the most of it. So that's all I've got. If anyone has any questions, let me know. All right, thank you.
Oh, stay there, we want you. So I want to thank Kevin for the great presentation. I mean, we wanted to tell you what good looks like. I think you got a great example here. We have two people in the room, one on this side and one on this side with mics. And we've got time for a couple of questions. So if you have one, please raise your hand and we'll bring a mic to you. Don't try talking before the mic gets there. So anybody on this side or this side? Oh, there we go. So we'll get you ready. And anybody on this side that wants to ask a question so we can get somebody to you?
Hello, Kevin.
Hello.
So this project was how many years ago?
We finished last summer, this couple months ago.
So question, Kevin, why good AWP needs so many good people? Why can't mere mortals or simple guys can do it?
I'm having trouble hearing you. Say it again.
Good AWP needs so many good people, good workplace planners,
Yes.
good supervisors, and so many more people into this. It seems very intensive. How can it be more simpler? How can mere mortals run good AWP?
Yeah, so one of the ways to make it simpler is to set up your rules and your processes, right, and use them over and over again. I hope I'm answering your question, because my hearing is not that good, and I'm struggling there, sorry. And you need to set some standards, right, and get alignment early on. But a job that has 3,500 people on isn't going to have two planners, you know, and you got to staff it. And it's like, well, you're going to spend $12 million on AWP for this project. Well, we're spending $2 billion on a project. This is nothing, you know. And it's like spend some money to make some money. But the key is to get people to understand what it is and do their share of the task, work together on it, right? For the superintendent to work with the planner, the general foreman to work with the planner, and have some shared ownership of it. For the planner to step up and do what needs to be done for the general foreman and the superintendent. For engineering to work and deliver engineering to construction in the sequence that they need it, not in the sequence that's easiest for engineering. And that's one of the big pulls that you'll find anyone that does AWP, is that engineering gives the most and gets the least from it. So you're going to have some built-in resistance there, right? That's part of the contract and part of letting them know, hey, you're not getting out of this. You said you're going to do it, you're doing it, and this is what it means, right? And then helping them do it. But that's my answer. I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, come and get me afterwards. All right, next.
Hey, Kevin. David Riley from Shell. Really appreciated the presentation, and I liked what you did with the tablets as opposed to the paper drawings in the field.
Yeah.
And I was curious how much resistance you may have seen from guys who are very used to using paper-based drawings. And secondly, how was the sign-off of work handled? Were there still wet signatures for that, or was that digital as well?
Yeah, so the resistance was way less than you would think, because everybody's got a smartphone, right? So people came up very quickly. I mean, I would see guys in my age group out there using them, and you can quickly tell if they use it, right? Because ask them a question, they go right through it to the point. Like, we would go out all the time, right? And it was so cool seeing a guy my age using an iPad, and I'd ask him about it, say, dude, do you miss drawings and stuff? And they'd say, nope. And I said, I got everything I need right here. And the younger guys that knew less about building a lot of times, but knew more about technology, would help the older guy. The older guy would help him about building, right? And the sign-offs, we didn't really have the digital sign-off, right? So we were trying to do that with DocuSign, but we had some struggles with that. So anyway, good question. But,
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. Fernando?
Okay.
Hi, Kevin. Great presentation. I'm Fernando Espana with ConstructX. You know, you mentioned in your discussion the the fact that you had all these pipe spools and you lit up the model and you saw all this Christmas tree red, green, and are you now looking at how you align the procurement process a little bit more and the supply chain? I know because the supply chain's not getting any easier to work with, but yeah, what's your steps?
So that's exactly what we're trying to do, right? And when we started this project in 18 with our AWP, and then really got into it in early 2019, we were going from a transformation of thought as the project leadership team from paper to digital. At that time, we didn't really understand at all databases and stuff like that. And I remember we thought a procurement work package would be a paper package like we had seen for the last 30-something years. And we really didn't hit the ball well on the PWP on that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm moving it forward so much into the feed, because in feed is when you do a lot of bulk purchasing. And you purchase all your long lead equipment during feed. And so we're going to use it going forward all digital so you can assign it better, right? So maybe Jeff or Gregorio can answer that better for how you do that now. Gregorio, you in here? Can you answer that? Yeah, right over here. He's our data guru. So why don't you stand up and then get the microphone and just give him a little idea of that.
Hey, can you, yes, okay, hear me. Okay, so I was not expecting the question. But,
I was testing to see if he was listening. He was ignoring me.
Let me find the folder. So I would say that's the most difficult process to align from the EPC perspective. So aligning part of construction with procurement requires some courage and also some deep understanding. I've seen in the last years that most of the people that are resistant to implementing PWPs, in reality, they are more scared about the change than they really know what the change is going to result, right? So in reality, implementing a PWP for me is not so difficult. It's just a matter of crunching the data in a good way. No really big impact on the way you procure. So you are still going to procure the same objects, the same construction components. It's just the way you frame the data of procurement that changes. And the change is for the better because it is aligned to the part of construction, which is what you really want. So yeah, so my recommendation is whenever you find somebody that is scared about implementing PWPs or is coming to you with some objections, then first go really in the detail, don't talk high levels, like you need to dive into the details. And then second, help people understand that you're not going to really change your procurement strategy. You're just looking at things from a different perspective. I hope I answered.
Yeah, and you're assigning that data for that procurement to the construction work package that's going to work, right? That's part of, which is the PWP for that. So it's an assignment. So one of the things that we learned is if you start with small components and build up, you can always put small components together, but if you start in a chunk of work, a chunk of data, you can't break it down later to split it. So you need to use small level of detail, a fine level of detail for your databases, and then you can put it together. So yeah, that's a challenging thing, right? So on a previous job that y'all did, you did better on it. We got some room to grow on that, right? Because it's not simple. But that's something that I really want to do on our next project is tie that in. So good question.
So we've got time for one more question, but I'm going to commit Kevin and the Insight folks to answer questions during the break. So
that's fine.
If you didn't get your question answered, it's not that we're ignoring you, it's just we're running a little late.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for the very interesting presentation, Frank Bankert with Linde Engineering. My question actually goes in the same direction, even one step further. You mentioned integration of engineering, Technimont in this case also. Did they also work with engineering work packages and linking of those then to the construction work packages and installation work packages and so on?
Yes, yes, they did. And we took the drawings and they used, I can't remember what the software was that they used for assigning the drawings to the EWPs, but they did that and they were directly linked to the CWPs. One of our mistakes we made on this job, we made our CWPs too big. It was like, we said 40,000 hours, that's too big. So now we're doing like 8,000 to 10,000 hours and assigning those EWPs for it. And another thing you do is you set up the the coordinates in your model, right? So for structural steel, for pipe, for civil, that's fairly easy because of 3D. For electrical, it's a little more challenging. But ISC, the contractor we had, they modeled the secondary cable tray and through some software that they got, and it cost us $1 million and it saved us $5 million. And that was ISC coming up with that. That was not us. And so you can definitely do it. And what it does is you're doing your engineering the same way, because you engineer by system, process system, but you need to deliver it by the area components, right? And you assign that in your BOM and your drawing for each drawing. And that goes to the database. So you got to have fields in your database to assign it to the correct PWP, and then it's going to be broken down from there to the 1 week IWP. And that PWP or CWP, a CWP is, Jean-Luc came up with this, and our CWPs were so big, we went from 40,000 hours to 800 or 900 hours. And you're like, you can't figure out which IWP comes next, you know, we're lost in them. And so he came up with this idea of group work package, which was one general foreman, which is 3 foremen for 6 to 8 weeks worth of work. You know, so that's about 8,000 or 10,000 hours. And that was the sweet spot for it. So we said, going forward, we're gonna make the CWP 8,000 to 10,000 hours. And that's what we're doing going forward on the project I'm on now. So you can tie in the engineering that way, but you gotta tie it back to the model. So another thing is, if you do your own spooling as the engineering company, you can do those PCF files, you put them back into the 3D model, like if you're using S3D, and now you've got your field connections in your base model. So one is you can put the hours for those connections in there, either field welds or they're bolt ups, right? And if you go back and do a revision and change, you put it back in that model, because that model will stay true then, because you're gonna have some revisions. And you gotta be able to catch those revisions to get them to the field, or you just start building in inefficiencies. But Linda, that's a good engineering company. We worked with you before, right? And for engineering companies, if you want to be the leaders going forward, I suggest you get into this stuff and you figure out how to build it into your practices. And once you get used to it, I think it's not going to be that hard, because you can track chunks of work. And we look in our schedule, we'd have these Pareto charts of EWPs, and green was on time, yellow was getting dicey, and red was behind schedule. And people hate seeing their stuff in red, you know? And you see it coming, but you've got these Pareto charts going out, and you know which EWPs are due when, so you can focus your effort on finishing the engineering for that. And the Technomont civil and structural guys, they really did a good job with that. They embraced it, and they really got after it. And one of the other things for civil is you need to make the foundations, each one needs to have its own tag, right? You don't want groups of foundations, even if they're small pedestals, because you got to be able to move them around to different IWPs. And then within them, you have the rebar and you have the concrete and the form. So you got to be able to package those separately as you need to. So, any other questions? Are we done, out of time?
No, we're not out of time.
I got 6 minutes.
Yeah, the PM in me was concerned we were going to be behind schedule, but we're not. We're actually
Hey, we're doing AWP. We're on time.
So
Ahead of schedule, below budget.
Okay, I have
Right.
a question. Yeah.
Three more people want to talk, so I'm going to give it to Amy, then Babatunde, and then Fish.
Hi, Amy Marks from Symmetry. I can't help but be struck by the irony of the first question when he said, you have so much more data, and yet you're saying we need so many more people as you have all this data, and at the same time saying, I don't know, we don't need 20 more data scientists on the stage. And the next question being, would people use iPads instead of paper? So as you look across this room and recognize that there are very few, if any, people under 30 in the room, and I could probably count on 1.5 of my hands how many women are in this space, I just feel we need to do better than saying, let's get some iPads to the field and let's think about, tagging things differently. I think the people we need in the space as people retire may be those data scientists and people that actually understand robotics and automation and fabrication and are not the guys that are afraid to use an iPad instead of getting off of paper. So I just thought I would ask you if you actually see that as part of the issue here, that we do need more data that can be automated so we have less people, different people in the space that we're attracting. If not, many of these people will be retiring in that, next few years.
I agree with that. You need data scientists, right? So that's something we're figuring out, but that's not like a major you get in college, right? These people come from engineering. Some of them don't have degrees, but they have an interest in it. And the reason it's old guys is because that's who's in construction, Old white guys are the guys who've been in construction for 40 years. There's been many more people, like in Texas, it's, a lot of Hispanics are in it, but it's still predominantly men. And, and women can come into it if they want. We'd be happy to. That's half of the workforce, right? And you don't have to be a strong back to be in construction. You need a strong mind and a will to do it, right? And, yeah, well, that's fine. If they can do it, have at it, And, but my thing is, I don't care what your story is, where you come from, what your gender is, what your race is. I couldn't care less. I don't care if you've been to prison, if you haven't been to prison. I care, do you want to come here and do something, right? If you want to do it, come on in. We want people, right? We want people to want to do it, but they got to step up. We want people who want to step up, do a good job, do something better than we did it before, keep on improving our game, right? And we want to make some money. And we want to keep the money in our own country, right? And we want to keep people employed. I got a 19-year-old son that wants to be an electrician. I want him working in Texas. I don't want him working somewhere else because he has to go there to get work. If he chooses to go there, fine. But I want him working in Texas so he's nearby the house, right? And like I said before, I grew up in the 70s in the Midwest and all the industry left and we didn't have any jobs. So, as a woman, you're welcome to it, We're not cavemen. We're regular guys wanting to build something. And so bring it on, and encourage people. Like my daughter, she wants nothing to do with construction. And I've talked with her about it. She's like, no way. And I'm like, man, we have women out there, And she doesn't accept it. So some of that's individual bias as well. But this thing about barriers, we don't have barriers on a job site. Our barriers are the challenges of the job, and we got to come together and make the most of it. And things will improve, But if we're getting 1% increase in our productivity, we got a lot of ways to go, right? So any good, willing person is welcome. So did you have a question?
Yes. My name is Tunde. I'm from Nigeria. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I've got two questions. The first one is, are you able to structure your compensation to the contractor using the AWP approach, knowing that most of the time, these contractors are always on the conventional approach of probably getting the P&IDs ready and you give them the money for the engineering scope and stuff like that, as compared to having the work packages ready. Are you able to do the compensation, the payment on your own project?
For the construction company, that's what you're asking, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so the construction company is the one that has the most to gain, right? They actually get the materials they need when they need them. They get the information they need when they need it in their path of construction, right, in their sequence of construction. So they're easier to get on board than the engineering usually. And one of the things you got to know is you got to supplement those guys, right? So when we started this, the guys from ISC and from Performance, they didn't know how to build these packages, but they were willing to build them, right? And they saw the value in it. And then we had the guys from Insight AWP helping us do it. And so we had to teach them. There's some back and forth too, because man, a lot of people are hardheads, you know, and stubborn and stuff like that. And we had to work through that stuff. And you got to supplement them where you don't have people, but you also got to take people from that construction company that they're plenty intelligent enough, they just haven't been exposed to it before, right? And you got to teach them how to do it and give them a chance. And, you know, like my wife was reading this thing and she said it was about boomers and zoomers in the workplace, right? And we're boomers. And they said zoomers' complaints about boomers. One is they think we're the tech support, you know? And I was like, man, that's the truth, you know? How many times have I asked those guys how to do something? And then, you know, they also complain that we use all the printing supplies because we like it on paper. And so there's some transformation there. And these guys that have been around, they're willing to do some of this stuff, and some of them aren't. And the guys who aren't, you know, let them go, but let them be. But use them for what they're good for. But take those other people that want to learn and want to try it, and you develop that culture. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, come and talk with me afterwards. And we'll talk.
The other question is, how do you also manage cases when you have your IWP throughput that you mentioned, where you are supposed to have your IWPs ready, but you have your EWPs that are not ready or were released with constraints earlier on, and it's time for you to use your IWPs, and you have EWPs that have constraints.
So if your EWP is not released, you can't release the IWP, right? It has to be constraint-free in order to be released. So if it's in the 4-week look ahead, it's got to be constraint-free, or maybe it has one component that's going to be here next week and it's 3 weeks out, right? But you're out of sequence if you're doing that. You got to line up. You line up, your path of construction is based on CWPs, the order you want to do them within each CWA. So every construction work area, we base it on large pieces of equipment usually, and they can each be their own critical path schedule. So you assign the EWPs within that for those CWPs in that construction work area, and then that's where the IWP comes from. So they're linked together, so you know if this CWP has what it needs or not with the engineering and the materials. So you don't run into that. That thing gets pushed back on hold, and then you'll release that IWP later when you have the constraints removed. And if you want more questions, come on afterwards, we'll talk, okay? Anyone else?
Yes. Is this on?
That's exactly right. An IWP that's release constrained is an IWP that can't be closed. And IWP that can't be closed is just like someone who doesn't want to work. Not of much value to us. So, any other questions? All right, thanks.
Sorry.